Right, that was quite a fun intro for 2022. Well, good evening to you, and welcome to the Sandton Times Podcast, episode 65. And if I'm right, it's week 5 of 2022. It's the 1st of February, the first week of February, and here we are again, doing it all for another year. I'm Alex. I'm joined by my ever competent co-host, Catherine Grunewald in the Mother City. Catherine, how's it going, man?
Hi, Alex. It's so nice to be back on our podcast. It's been a while.
It is great, man. And I know for tonight's episode, we've just thrown out all the rule books. We've thrown out all the format. We're kind of taking it easy. It's like the first day back at work. I see so many people are back at work, and they were so excited because they haven't seen people in sort of 12, 24 months. So it's kind of like first day back at school, first day back at work. So we're literally going to chat. We've got a guest lined up later on tonight that I think will be quite interesting in terms of relationships. So yeah, we're going to do whatever we feel like doing tonight. And if you're watching, if you're listening, feel free to connect. You can comment in the chat if you're watching this on Facebook or on YouTube. And if you're watching this delayed on, on the podcast, on Apple or Spotify, that's cool as well. You can email edit@sandtontimes.co.za or connect on social media at Sandton Times and visit the website, www.sandtontimes.co.za. And up front, if you're watching the video feed, Catherine's camera bombed out. What happened?
You know, I always have problems with tech. I honestly don't know why, but it's going straight into the fixing place tomorrow, and I'm sorting this out because it's very important that, you know, it's easier to chat to someone when you're looking at them, I think. Definitely helps.
Well, at least we've got a lovely picture of you, so it doesn't feel like we're just talking to one of those, what are those, those sort of generic sort of...
avatars.
Yeah, weird avatars that don't have a face and don't have sort of a look or feel. It's just sort of blank.
I wish I looked like that when I spoke, but I definitely don't.
Well, Catherine, I know of the last 2 episodes that we did, I think you did exceptionally well. So you're forgiven tonight that we don't have a camera. We'll make up for it next time, and maybe even the connection is faster. I don't even know. Maybe if we're not on one or the other videos, then the connection might be faster, might be smoother. I don't know.
Maybe no lag time then. Hopefully.
Hopefully not.
I've been listening to so many podcasts since we've been getting into it, so picking up a few tips.
Yeah, you need to tell me about that. I just want to quickly remind everybody to subscribe, share, and leave a review or rating for this channel and for this podcast. And feel free to send questions or comments. You're part of the conversation, so feel free to jump in. So what podcasts have you been listening to since we last chatted in December?
You know how it always goes, Alex, at the beginning of the year. It's always kind of like, self-love podcasts, how to get back on track, how to make the year a good one. It's all those kinds of ones that I think are going to last about a week, and then I'll probably get over them. But I've been walking on the promenade every day in Cape Town. It's so beautiful. The weather's so hot. It's kind of my way of getting some sunshine and getting my exercise in and trying to learn something all at the same time.
I must say that's the nice thing about Cape Town is that it is very... like it feels like the kind of place that you want to go outside and you want to go do things. I know a lot of friends who go to Cape Town and they always go do hikes and they always go do all these things. And it's not like people come to Johannesburg and be like, oh, we need to go do a hike, or
imagine.
We need to go. Yeah, it's a little bit different here. Here it's a little bit trickier, and I think you have to go a little bit further.
I think I'd spend a lot more money if I lived in Johannesburg because, it's kind of like eating and going out, whereas here there's just so many outdoorsy things to do, and it's kind of what I choose to do when the weather's so good is be outdoors. So it's just good for your health and your mental health and everything. So I'm loving it. Just very, very, very hot. How's the weather in Joburg? I actually haven't heard much about it.
It's okay. I mean, I think it's fairly normal. We've just had an exorbitant amount of rain. I mean, it is really unbelievable how much rain we've had. Some people call it the wettest December/January/summer in history. I mean, it's unreal. When I was driving back from the Eastern Cape during my little break, beginning of January, the Geroep Dam walls, the sluices were open. It looked unbelievable. I'm hoping to include some video of that in an upcoming vlog that I'll be posting. But it looks sensational. I mean, if you can ever experience dam walls open and take a drive over the wall, and then if you're lucky, you can maybe get what's it called, like a view from sort of riverside as the water comes down. it is absolutely tremendous. That force and that amount of water that is just pouring down is just unbelievable.
Oh, we could do with some rain. I'm very jealous.
Really? Have you had nothing? I mean, I
Oh
know there
my
was talks
gosh.
that Cape Town had a scorcher the
Oh,
other day, but
it's honestly about 33 every single day. And it
really,
just gets a bit much like after a while. I'm quite tired of it now, but apparently it's raining tomorrow and Thursday. So although first Thursdays is coming up this week, which I love. Have you ever been to one in Cape Town?
I think I missed one once, and then I ended up going to one in Johannesburg, which I believe is not quite the same. Funny enough, talking about first Thursdays, Cape Town, whatever. I was supposed to be in Cape Town this week, and that's a whole nother story.
Oh,
So yeah, well, I mean, we'll get to it shortly, but I mean, I'm on my second round of COVID, which I think officially recover from or officially am out of as of today. So yeah, so I had to cancel that whole trip. We were supposed to be doing this show together live from Cape Town,
I would have
and
loved that.
yeah, it would have been great, but it is what it is. We're going to have to catch up and do this again at some other point. But
Next
that's
first Thursday.
next Thursday. Yeah, exactly. We'll plan it a bit better.
Yeah, 100%. Shame, Alex, that's hectic. I actually haven't had it yet.
I was doing so well, Catherine. I was doing so well. I mean, you know how it goes. Like you really went. I mean, I went all out, hand sanitizer, masking up. Keeping it so safe. And then somehow contracted this the day after we finished our last podcast. So we finished on Tuesday evening, the 14th. The 15th, I woke up and I felt like fluish. And I had this ridiculous fever. And I thought, you know what? Maybe it's like end of the year, like when you literally switch off the stress button. And I'd submitted all my paperwork for my MBA, and there was literally nothing except a holiday standing in my way. And I thought maybe that's that. Maybe, your body just responds and it goes, look, you know what, like all the pressure's off. We're just going to let go. And by the end of that day, I was like, no, there's something that's not lacquer here. And the last thing I want to do is get in a car, drive to the other side of South Africa, only to find out that I'm not well. So went for a quick test down the road at a fantastic testing spot, as far as testing spots go, the Morningside dispensary here in Sandton. And this guy he was very switched on. He did an excellent job. I didn't feel violated. My nose didn't feel violated after this thing. And yeah, it came back positive, and that was it. Had to cancel my entire holiday or postpone it at least. And I must say, for 95% of the destinations, they were like, fine, cool, come back some other time. We'll move it to January or whatever the case is. And that was it. And suddenly I was in bed for 10 days. And I think that the craziest thing about when you first get it is that you don't know how you're going to respond, because let's be honest, everyone's had a different experience. There's been a general sort of COVID experience, but then some people have had horrendous experiences. I mean, I keep having stuff popping up on my LinkedIn of people I've worked with, people I've dealt with who've been in hospital for months, or have gone into ICU or ventilators, or all kinds of horrible things. And then you have people who kind of have flu. It feels like flu. They kind of have a couple of off days, and then they're back on their feet after 10 days, and that's it. And it's just the craziest thing. So knock on wood, whatever it is, genes, genetics, supplementation, whatever it was, doctors, I think I had 3 or 4 really rough days in terms of headaches, fever, body pains, and then felt much better. But what was really crazy was, after 10 days, back on track, feeling normal again, go on that holiday that I postponed, drive down to the Eastern Cape, did the whole tour, which is a whole nother conversation on its own. And like I said, there's a weekly vlog that I've kicked off. So if you're keen to see some stuff of what happened in the Eastern Cape, go check on the vlog. It's on the YouTube channel. But get back, and literally, I'd say 3 or 4 days after getting back, end up in hospital again. Well, not again. Well, for the first time in this particular scenario, after almost blacking out because I was feeling so shite. And the doctor says, you're not going to believe it. You've got it again. And it's almost like
My
It
gosh.
resurrects. And it's not the first time I've heard this. And once again, don't consider this conversation medical advice. Speak to your doctor, check with the World Health Organization, whatever. But the conversation I had with a few people was that, yeah, they had this virus or this particular strain or this variant, and suddenly it made a comeback, like either a few weeks later or a few days later, or however it worked. But it's just, people can't explain it. And let's be honest, it's only been around for 2 or 3 months. So how much can we honestly know, in all honesty, in terms of how this thing operates? But yeah, so back in isolation for 10 days, another 2 or 3 sort of fairly offish days. But once again, after day 4, 5, started feeling normal again. And today, like, there we are again, back to normal. But I really hope this thing is now done. I hope we don't have to
Wow.
replay this again, because it was really, I mean, you're blessed and lucky if you have a good reaction, in terms of it's nothing too serious. You can manage it. You don't pass it on, etc. But just having to isolate for 10 days every single time also just throws you off on all levels. I mean, you have to postpone things, you have to cancel things, you have to do a whole bunch of things, because you don't want to just sort of venture out into the world and say, well, I'm taking it well. Good luck to everybody else. You want to do the responsible thing. So that's quite I want to call it a schlep. I mean, I don't want to sound like somebody who's moaning about something that isn't, as intense as other people have experienced it. But that's what it was like, Catherine. It's crazy. So hence, I'm not in Cape Town with you this week.
Wow.
Yeah.
I actually haven't had it at all yet. Can you believe it?
Great. And let me tell you, the weirdest thing is that people said to me, the first 12 or 14 months or 18 months that this thing was running, have you had it? And I kid you not, there were moments where I thought, well, you know what? There were some days where I thought, gee, I must have had this thing, because, you felt a bit off. You had a couple of days where you didn't feel too well, but then you didn't go and test, because you didn't want to like seem over
Cautious.
Cautious, or go into the ridiculous. Every time you cough, you think you have to go for a test. So you just stay at home and you keep it safe, whatever, and you don't connect with people, etc. And this was a time when we were like really in sort of fairly hard lockdowns. And I thought, man, maybe I've had it, and I didn't, I've had a different reaction to it to other people. It's just so strange. So, Catherine, if you haven't had it, you know what? Great. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's better to have had it and not had it, or had it and then recover from it. I don't know. Honestly, I'm
just going to plan on not getting it at all.
It's probably a very good plan. But I mean, also, you do whatever you can. I mean, you try and be as responsible as possible. I'm not going to go lock myself into a cellar with 500 people and everyone's breathing on each other. And there's a couple of good things I think that's come out of this entire time. I think, for one, I was quite happy seeing buffets not being the way they used to be.
Oh my gosh, me too.
I mean, do you remember that, when people used to sort of like stick their finger into like every sauce and salad?
Yes.
And like, oh gosh.
Although what I do miss is the curfew, because I'm quite a social person, and now there's no reason to leave a party or date. A date, more specifically, I think that's where I really miss it. It's a good excuse to get out of a date.
True. Sure, it's 9 o'clock. Oh, got to be home
by 10.
Oh
no, I have to go.
It's so funny you say that. You're not the only one who's mentioned that. Funny enough, about the curfew, I've heard so many people say, even the midnight to 4 a.m. or whatever it was. I mean, like, honestly, is there anything that you have to do in the world that is between midnight and 4 a.m.?
You shouldn't be doing anything. I think that's the other thing. Your body should be resting.
Yeah, you need to get some sleep, man. We're doing something for public health. I mean, I find now that since the curfew's gone, Monday to Sunday, Sandton it's ridiculous, because on the one hand, a lot of the bars and clubs are open till like well after 11, 12, whatever. And they're playing music. I mean, look, you don't want to sound like an old fogey. Like, honestly, we've been there, used to DJ in clubs. Like, we know the story. Like, but Monday to Sunday, if you actually have to like work the next day, if you're not, feel like you have to go out on a bender on a Monday night, it is a bit crazy, because then after everything closes, then you've got the drunk people walking through the streets, sort of singing "My Universe" by Coldplay.
Yes.
And then you've got the guys who have these ridiculously suited up cars. And before anyone says anything, like, there's no jealousy in you driving an M5 or a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or whatever, go for it. But to have to drive it in such a way that it sounds like there's something wrong
At
with
a
the
race
exhaust
course.
or the emissions at 3 o'clock in the morning, I think is totally unnecessary. I think
We had that
it
last
doesn't
night in our area. It's just so bizarre. I have never heard it before. People were like racing these very expensive cars. I kind of wish I was in one, to be honest.
really. I mean, I'm thinking these guys think it's some sort of mating call. I mean, you as a young lady, do you feel like this is, the moment you hear that, you like just drop everything and go, I need
No,
to get that
so
guy's number. I need to go on a date with him because this
no.
is the man for me. I mean, he drives a car that goes, bop, 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 bop. I
So
mean,
I tend to actually not go for those types of men at all. I want to have it be my car and I be driving my car.
right. But would you be driving it like that? I mean, would you be driving at 3 o'clock in the
No, well,
morning, sounding
okay,
like
no,
it's a drive-by shooting?
okay, true. Maybe not that time of the morning, but just being able to. I've always wanted my own Ferrari. Um, I mean, it's coming hopefully one day, and just to be able to like race it around a track or something, I think it must be such fun.
Listen, great cars. I mean, nothing. You know what? Nothing wrong with owning a car like that. Nothing wrong with driving a car like that. But I mean, I know, for example, in the big cities in Germany, for example, the police actually has a special unit that is parked outside sort of main city centers, and they actually measure the acoustics of these cars. Because yeah, cool, okay, fine, do whatever you want to do with your car, and but when it starts, I mean, 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it's bad enough in the afternoon, on a Sunday afternoon, when you go racing up and down a road. But
No,
to do
agreed.
it at that time of the morning, really, I mean, you're not proving anything to anyone. It's not fun. I mean, it really isn't, and it's almost a bit annoying. But
No, agreed.
anyway, but listen, I see there's a whole bunch of people watching and tuning in. If you're listening, if you trying to figure out what's going on, you're watching the Sandton Times podcast, you're listening to it as well at some stage, and feel free to drop us a question, a line, a comment, whatever it is, and we're happy to include you in this conversation. It's not just the two of us, although we're having a bit of a fat catch up. So,
Much
Catherine,
needed one.
what did you get up to over December?
Oh, I ate.
Oi.
I had a lot of champagne.
Oh yeah.
And I socialized a lot and it was fantastic. But I'm back on track. I'm on a strict gym routine. I'm on a strict eating plan. And it's fantastic. And I'm actually loving the routine of just being back to normal life.
Mm.
I'm going back to university in July. So I've kind of got this weird time now where I'm not doing a lot. So I'm actually exploring a few options. And one of them is either traveling just for fun all by myself, or I'm really considering going on the yacht. I actually did a lot of research about it today, just for 4 months, being a stewardess on the yachts. I think, yeah, it's such a great way to travel the world. You earn a lot of money in a short amount of time. And I think, I really need that time to grow, and I've got nothing better to do than travel. And I'm so excited, but I think I need to do a bit more research before I just throw myself in the deep end. So
Yeah,
that's
probably
kind
a
of
good
where
thing.
I'm at. How about you, Alex? What did you get up
I'm not
to?
getting on a yacht. No, not getting on a yacht. I actually, funny enough, I had a very interesting encounter with a whole bunch of yacht stewardesses. It's a very long story, but ended up at a very swanky establishment with most of the staff being former yacht stewardesses, and I've never experienced anything like this. It was
Oh,
unbelievable.
wow.
I mean, the service was sensational. It was like being served by sort of Emirates first class cabin crew, um, and they all had just the most fantastical stories. I mean, as much as they could possibly share. I mean, they were quite discreet and quite professional about all of it. But I mean, I think they were quite happy to sort of share, some things. And I mean, the one lady, she worked for a top US designer. All his stuff, obviously, on the ship was designed by him. But she said the most wonderful man, the most wonderful family, really great to work for. And then some of them also had like the most horrendous stories. I mean, they worked for billionaires and trillionaires and squillionaires who are richer than billionaires, and just horrible. I mean, like terrible family dynamics. Everyone's screaming at each other. People getting off the yacht, people getting on the yacht, and you're sort of like sandwiched in the middle, asking them if they want to have breakfast tomorrow morning or if they prefer going out on an excursion. I mean, I think it's a bit of the luck of the draw, but it looks like the most sensational experience in terms of seeing places like the Mediterranean or the Bahamas or whatever. So if you can research it well and get onto the right yacht, I think it could possibly be a fantastic experience.
I agree. I'm excited. I just need to do some research, as I said, and then who knows? I could be on a yacht soon. What did you end up doing for New Year's Eve?
Yeah, I mean that was also an interesting question, like because like after they made like a last minute call to say, oh, New Year's Eve curfew's lifted, which caught everybody off
Yes.
guard. I think most people had made a plan to sort of call it quits by 9 or 10 and then be like, okay, let's go somewhere, and then we're gonna have to run away, and yeah, that's it. I mean, we're gonna toast each other at home. I ended up going for dinner, going to the theater, and yeah, it was cool. I mean, I went to go see, what's his name, Jonathan Rocksmith. He's got a fantastic show on at Monte Casino, and they've done such a good job in trying to make the theater environment work as best as possible. I mean, honestly, you can see they're really, really trying to make it work. I mean, social distancing, masks, sanitizing, I mean, the whole shebang. And I mean, Jonathan is just sensational. I mean, one of my most favorite stage actors, and he's just smart, witty, talented. The ladies say he's good looking. I don't want to comment on that. But he's a dapper guy. And yeah, it was great. I mean, nothing like a bit of theater and a dinner on New Year's Eve. I mean, that was kind of the height of it. And Monte Casino was buzzing. But you know what the funny thing was? So curfew gets lifted, and you think, okay, the restaurants and the bars are going to absolutely, make a killing. But everyone was caught off guard. So we were chatting to, so the people I was there with, we were chatting to the owners, managers, waiters, and saying, oh, cool. So you guys are going to be open till like 2, 3. And it was such short notice that obviously what they'd done is they'd said, look, we're going to close by 10. So we're going to have the team work till 10. They have to be home by 11. And then the next morning we'll open early so we can get the best out of the 1st of January trade. So breakfast, lunch, whatever. And then when the whole plug was pulled, obviously they didn't have enough time to now re-engineer the logistics. So because then I think they would have probably brought in like one team in the evening and then let them sleep in and bring in a second team the next day. But there was no time to shuffle transport, staff lists, schedules, commitments. And yeah, so a lot of them actually did end up closing like 10, 11 just to, try and make it work. But I mean, it's crazy.
Wow.
And you, what did you end up doing? You were sitting on the Silo Hotel watching the fireworks over, Table Mountain, or no?
No, I was at a festival the whole weekend.
Sure.
In the middle of nowhere, it was a really small private one. It was about 200 people. I camped. I actually glamped.
You camped? Oh, you're bigger than me.
But it was my best friend. He is German and he likes everything to be perfect. So he built this beautiful camp for all of us. He made espresso martinis. He cut up my fruit in the morning for breakfast. So I had a fantastic weekend. I think my body was dead after dancing for 3 days straight afterwards. But I spent with great people, so I can't complain.
What's his name?
His name's
just first
Alex.
name.
Alex.
Yeah, he's German. Oh, sehr gut. Yeah. Would you like a drink with your popcorn? Or
exactly. Imagine having espresso martinis when you're in the middle of the Karoo, in a campsite. I mean, I really could be worse off.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then you've got a guy who's standing there going, Fräulein Grunewald, would you like espresso martini? One more before the New Year's.
Exactly. So yeah, I had a really great start to the new year, and everyone got COVID except me. So
unbelievable. Catherine, they're going to have to study your DNA and see if there's something miraculous thing that's going on.
Apparently, you get paid a lot of money if they can do tests on why you don't get COVID or something. And I think I need to research that.
Is that fact checked? Because there's going to be someone who's going to now Google that.
No, it's definitely not fact checked. Everybody, let's just say that. Someone told me the other day, and I was thinking to myself, "Well, it's quite a nice way to make some money." And the thing is, it's not like I've been not socializing. Within reason, obviously, but I've still been seeing my friends, going to restaurants, having a great old time. So,
well, for the most of it, it does feel a lot like very normal. And I was chatting to some of these people at these lodges that we were staying at, And some of them were saying, it's either people have gone all out and they're like, cool, whatever, like, we're going back to as normal as possible, or there's this sort of COVID skrik where people are like, I am not leaving my house, I'm not touching anything, I'm not looking anyone in the eye. It's like 100% or nothing, and that is quite wild, because you kind of have to cater to both. And when both audiences are sitting sort of at a breakfast table at a hotel, like how do you begin to manage that? Which is quite crazy.
So true.
But listen, if I'm bouncing around a bit, if I feel like I'm moving too much, I'm actually sitting on one of those yoga balls. I actually swapped one of my my office chairs for this yoga ball because I believe it improves your posture and your ergonomics.
Yes, and it's good for your core.
You see, so I'm gonna have the most incredible core in 2022.
I've actually I'm a fitness instructor, Alex, now.
Stop it. What did you do?
So I actually, before I was in Miss South Africa, I was a bar fitness instructor for about 8 months. And then I went to Miss SA, and obviously I wasn't, able to go to the gym outside of the hotel. And then I recently, 3 weeks ago, started teaching HIIT at the same gym. I love it. I'm teaching tomorrow morning, bright and early, 7:15 a.m. And
be there.
Be there or be square, the Storm Center. It's flipping fantastic. It's such a good vibe. Basically, how it works is we do 2.5 minutes on the floor, and then with weights, and 2.5 minutes on a cardio machine. And you alternate throughout the cardio machines. And it's a calorie burning, high intensity, loud music workout, and it's such fun.
Well, listen, I don't want to give away too much, but it's fitness and health is definitely on my agenda for this year. And I don't want to sound like one of those people who's like, I've got a New Year's resolution, lose weight, stop smoking, stop drinking, etc. No, honestly, I've entered myself into a challenge. I've got, a whole plan in place. And I think one of my, you put down a little bit of a reason why you're doing it, because I think that's very helpful. If you've got something to go back to as to why you're doing it, rather than, okay, I can win some money or I lose some weight, whatever. There has to be a little bit more. So if you've got like 20 good reasons, there's always one of them that kind of feels appealing. So one of the things was I'm keen to, after this process, instruct a HIIT class, because I enjoy attending HIIT classes.
Yeah, that's great.
That would be a cool goal. And then to get featured in Men's Health, because the editor of Men's Health, about 2 years ago, we had this conversation. He's like, Alex, if you pull this off, we'll do a story on you in Men's Health. And I said to him, yeah, that's it. We're going to do it. And then,
what I don't know. Great motivation.
But this year I said, no, stuff it. I don't know if you've watched that Will Smith documentary on YouTube. It's about a 6-part series. It's called Best Shape of My Life.
I've heard of it. I've never watched it, and I think I'm going to watch that tonight.
Do it. It's really great. It's a YouTube original. It's Will Smith at his worst in terms of body shape and how he sort of claws himself back to a fantastic shape. And I think it's a really great story. And that kind of also triggered something in me to say, you know what, actually, turning 40 next year, could I be in better shape at 40 than I was at 14? And let's see. It's day, what are we on? Day 2 or 3 right now. And the food's cool. The workouts are good.
How exactly is this plan? What does the plan entail? Give us some insight. I want to know.
So, Catherine, I'm not going to tell you too much, because there's going to be a vlog. There's going to be a vlog episode coming out in the next 2 or 3 weeks where I'm going to outline exactly how this is going to work, and it's going to keep me accountable to you, to our audience, to everyone watching. That now I'm in it. There's no choice. There's no turning back. There's nothing. So.
Oh well, we are here for you. This is very exciting.
And I'll do a HIIT class with you when I'm in Cape Town as well, just to add to my calendar.
I was just about to say that. No, completely. It's great fun. I have to write a workout every time, and it's just I play such loud music, and everyone just gets in a good mood. And it's dark in there, so there's disco lights. It's great. If you're in Cape Town, you should definitely come and check it out.
Listen, if you've never done a HIIT class, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, you've never done a HIIT class, it's like doing insane exercise in a nightclub, but it's like 5:15 in the morning, which for some people would still be clubbing because they're probably on their way home.
Yes.
But it's fantastic. I absolutely love it. I've attended a variety of different ones, and if you've never done it, here's something. Do something first for 2022. Do something new.
And it's February. It's a good time. I think a lot of people. expect to start these things in the first week of Jan, and it's already the first week of February. So it's a good reminder to get back on your goals and kind of just, do something for yourself. That's why I work out. It's such a good time for me to just focus on myself and realign and, just be healthy. And that's the goal, right? It's just
For
not
sure.
for the aesthetics, but to just feel good and be a healthy human.
Well, listen, Catherine, you mentioned February. February is the month of love, 14th of February, Valentine's Day.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, man, here we go again. And relationships, man, become so important, but not just because it's February or whatever. I think relationships have been an important thing for quite some time. And I'm thrilled that we're going to be joined by Paula Quinsee. She's a relationship expert. She's written some books on the subject as well. So it's a chance for us to kind of have a conversation with her and chat about relationships. If you're good at them, if you're bad at them. I
could be here forever talking to Paula.
All right. Do you want? Otherwise, I'm going to make myself some coffee, and you and Paula can carry on chatting, and then I'll see you guys. I'll see you guys next week. But Paula Quinsee, good to have you on this podcast.
Welcome.
Hey, Alex. Hey, Catherine. So good to be with you guys tonight.
Likewise. It's great to have you.
Well, it's great to have you on, Paula. Quickly, before we get into any sort of extreme questions and deep, meaningful sort of conversations, what does a relationship expert do?
So my area of expertise is dealing with relationships, both at home and in the workplace, and what people call emotional intelligence, things like conflict management, effective communication skills, how to create psychological safety or emotional safety, how to understand how our upbringing, so our childhood conditioning, influences and shapes us, and how we forge relationships with others. And yes, everybody has baggage.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about the month of love. I mean, this is not just romantic relationships. I mean, this is relationships. This is engaging with other people in general. It doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic relationship.
Correct. There's very little difference between personal relationships and professional relationships. The core foundations, the core principles are the same. You need an element of trust. You need an element of respect. You need to be able to communicate, and you need to be able to resolve conflict. And if you've got those four basic pillars or foundations in place, those are the foundations of a healthy relationship, personal or professional.
So how has all of this changed during COVID-19? I mean, let's maybe start off with the professional and then also look at the romantic, because I think it must be the most stretched time for anybody who was struggling with relationships before. I mean, even if you weren't struggling with relationships before, I mean, it's been very difficult to keep friendships going, never mind romantic relationships, meeting new people. I mean, you're just scared of people in general right now. I mean, I don't know if I'd be running towards any strangers right now. It must have just absolutely turned this whole thing upside down.
Definitely. It certainly has put the spotlight on a lot of relationships, both personally, but then obviously in the workplace as well, with people having to work from home. And so losing that human connection, first of all, in the workplace, working closely with your colleagues, with your teammates, with your customers, with your suppliers. At the end of the day, we are social creatures by nature. We are we're wired for connection. And so when it came to the workplace, being forced to go into lockdown, usually when it comes to change, we have the choice and the option. We buy into change, but we had no choice. One day life was normal, the next day we were in lockdown, and that was taken away from us. So we've dealt with a lot of loss. So from a workplace point of view, loss of identity. That simple act of getting up and going somewhere every day that gave us a sense of purpose and a sense of identity and human connection and interaction and socialization in the workplace. And also, the goals that we were chasing, career goals and other such things, and experiencing that culture in the workplace. So we lost a lot of that. And a lot of people, especially if you want to talk about profile types now, and I don't like labeling people, but at a very simple level, if you're talking introverts and extroverts, extroverts struggled with having to now work from home, especially if you live alone and on your own, and you don't have anybody around you from a connection, interaction perspective. A lot of people struggled. We also struggled to kind of find a routine without that structure that we had in place of getting up and going to the office. And then from a personal point of view, as you mentioned earlier, those relationships that were already rocky to begin with, well, it just kind of cracked those wide open and put the spotlight on in terms of glaring sort of red flags. And then those of even of the strongest relationships were tested, especially where you have children and you had to now homeschool and you had to juggle and work around each other and manage the home work life responsibilities and being in lockdown. And at a basic level, our freedom was taken away from us. Our independence was taken away from us. Our social and our support circles and structures were taken away from us. So we've definitely been impacted on a lot of levels when it comes to relationships.
Well, it's quite scary because I know some people and I had some moments where I was like, this is actually not too bad. I actually quite enjoy this sort of social isolation. I don't really have to talk to people all the time, and maybe it speaks more to my introverted self, where I kind of go, I could carry on like this. This is not too bad. As long as you kind of get to see sort of those nearest and dearest to you and some very close friends, the rest of the time, a lot of the conversations and the people you have to meet, you kind of meet because you have to meet them or you have to talk to them. So if I don't have to do that, and I know that it sounds very unhealthy.
Well, it can be, because the risk with that is you just become more and more reclusive, and you become more and more in your own routine, in your own bubble, in your own space. And over time, you can start losing some of those social skills and the ability to interact and engage with each other. And that's one of the things this year, or towards the end of last year, beginning of this year, as peak companies are now opening up and people are going back into the workplace, and whether it's a full-on in the workplace or whether it's hybrid working models, whatever it is, it's how do you reintegrate people back into public spaces?
Well, enough about me. Let me hand you over to Catherine in a second. And if you're watching, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a comment. If you've got any questions, if you want to be part of the conversation, please feel free. We all know each other here on the internet, and you can drop us a line. If you're listening to the podcast, don't forget to subscribe as well. And Catherine, I know you got tons of questions, so let me shut up for a minute.
No, I think dating in my age group is so complicated, especially when it comes to, social media and dating apps. I don't know. I find dating nowadays so difficult. I'm 23 and oh my gosh, it's tough. And I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like my friends and I are constantly just being disappointed by men in general. And I think, it's such a fine line between, how they say play hard to get, but then you play too hard to get, and then they're not interested. So I want your opinion on, how to, in the beginning when you're dating somebody or, seeing somebody, how do you keep it a fine line between playing hard to get, but also showing them that you're interested, if I can say that. I hope that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. And so communication is key, and there's nothing wrong with being honest about what your boundaries are and putting those boundaries down, but at the same time communicating in terms of letting that person know what you're enjoying about the way that they're engaging with you, the way that they're interacting with you, so that they know that, you are interested. You're just choosing to take things slow. You want to be sure before you jump into it. You want to make sure that this is a person that potentially, and there's potential here that you want to look at pursuing before jumping in with both feet. And so I think communication is definitely key, and that two-way feedback around, well, I'm enjoying that you're, being so manly about taking initiative and booking a restaurant for us, or wanting to try this and experience something new and something different. And then also from an individual point of view, it's very important to, first of all, before you go into the dating game, is being very clear upfront about what you are looking for in a potential partner. Because if you don't know what you're looking for, how will you recognize it when it arrives on your doorstep?
Oh, that's so true. Yeah, I think speaking about it in the beginning just makes it so much easier later on, It's definitely easier said than done. It's you also don't want to, I think, if I go on dates with somebody, I don't want to come across too strong by being like, this is what I'm looking for. I want someone, a partner. It's difficult. It's a fine line.
Don't like Catherine, you've got a brochure that you bring out. Has all your photos and your qualifications and testimonials.
My CV, imagine. No, I know, literally. But I think 23 is a good age to still be single. But I think sometimes it's nice to have a partner. Hey, Alex, what do you think?
Here we go. Here I come with my relationship advice.
I'm throwing it back to you.
My ancient wisdom. I've even got a beard where I can stroke my beard and think, yeah, listen, I mean, you know what? The person you are when you start your 20s and the person that you are when you end your 30s or begin your 30s, totally different person. I mean, I think there's some psychological study. Paula, please rip me aside if I get this completely wrong. But I think when I did psychology at varsity, one of the things we learned is probably the only thing I vaguely remember from varsity is that by 25, your brain has fully developed to associate decisions with repercussions. I think up until that point, you don't make that cognitive connection. So that's why when you leave school, varsity up until 25, you do stuff and you think, that was so dumb. Like, why did I do that? Like, how did I get myself into this situation? Have I got that right, Paula? Is that sort of biologically, technically somewhat right?
Yeah, around age 24, and obviously everybody's different, but the average is around 24 when your brain is then fully developed. So, leading up to that, you still have a lot of plasticity or neuroplasticity in terms of your neurons, and that are still busy wiring and firing and that kind of thing. But it's also about learning about yourself, testing the limits or pushing the boundaries and things that you like, things that you don't like. You're still trying to figure out your identity and who you are, let alone, am I ready to be in a serious long-term relationship? And also depends on your upbringing and the sort of grounding that you've had from your parental figures in your life, your primary caregivers, because we base a lot of our relationship blueprint on our primary caregivers. So in most cases, mother and father. That's the first relationship that we learn about as to what is a relationship, based on how our parents interact with each other and how we interact with our parents. That's where we learn about love and relationships and how to deal with conflict and vulnerability and emotions and affection and attention and all of those things. And we carry that with us into our adult relationships.
I mean, a bit of pop culture, psychology from my side as well. I mean, another piece of advice is don't look for 100%. You'll never get 100%. No. Absolutely not. If you can get 80%, grab it with both hands. And if you can live with the 20%, I don't know what the 20% is, it varies. It's manageable. But don't go out there because I think also the other issue, Paul, I think Catherine mentions, her age group. I mean, at 23, if I think back to when I was 23, 22, whatever, I mean, you didn't even have access to. I think I started a 3310 or something. I don't even know what it was, a Nokia black and white screen. I mean, there was none of this stuff like these apps, and I mean, you were not as connected as you were like you are now. And I mean, to some extent, what's quite profound is that it's never been easier to meet people, yet it's never been harder to really meet people, right?
That's so interesting.
Yeah, we've never before we've been in such a connected world through devices and platforms, yet so disconnected from self, but also from others. And you're absolutely right. News flash, breaking news. There is no such thing as the perfect person or the perfect relationship. It's how perfect can you be for each other.
Yeah. Listen, I think there's a lot that needs to happen. I think before I think you make any sort of serious commitments, and I think your 20s is probably a good space to explore safely, if I can say that. I think don't really jump into too many hardcore things, but yeah, I mean, I think this is a whole nother conversation for a whole nother evening. I think we could probably spend the next 3 hours talking about hot relationship advice and what to do and what not to do. But Paul, I wanted to ask you something as well. Is that I found this to be the great reset when it comes to relationships across the board. Because I think so many people looked at this time and went, I know who cares for me. I know who doesn't care for me. I've evaluated what matters. I thought, being the guy who buys all the drinks at the club, I've got hundreds of friends. Now where are all those hundreds of friends? No one's buying drinks for me. I'm broke because I spent all my money buying drinks at the club. I mean, suddenly there must have been this insane shift in the way people now think, actually, maybe I don't need so many friends. Maybe I need different friends. maybe the friends I had weren't great. Maybe the friends I did have were fantastic because, I don't know, they brought me food or whatever it is that they did. I mean, have you seen a lot of that happening in your profession?
We've definitely taken stock of life and looked at the value and meaning of life and what life looks like for us and the life we aspire to. And we've definitely done a lot of introspection and reflection on what is meaningful and important to us, and relationships being one of those, and relationships across the board. So friendships as well as our personal, our intimate relationships. And at the same time, choosing to let go of what no longer serves us and to look for the things that do serve us in terms of the quality of life that we now aspire to, because we've had a taste for it. You know, we've seen that we can work from anywhere, that there is flexibility, that we can have work-life, well, everybody calls it work-life balance, but it's a complete myth. It's work-life integration. How do you make life work for you in terms of, you know, your lifestyle and your family structure and those kind of things? So, yeah, and we've also started redefining what does success look like for us at a relationship level, at a partner level, at a family structure level, and at a career level too. So all of those things, we've done a lot of culling on so many levels and a lot of hitting the reset button.
You know, it's interesting some of the points you raised there, and I think it was just I heard in the news what was last week or 2 weeks ago, where something like 4 million Americans are quitting their jobs every month, and stuff that's coming up is exactly that. I need to prioritize my kids. I've realized working 12 hours a day is absolute rubbish. And I mean, it comes to that whole work-life balance conversation. Catherine, here's another tidbit for you going into the world. If anyone says to you there's work-life balance, anyone who's written work-life balance books has retired as a millionaire. To get to that million, they had to work 24 hours a day. They had to sacrifice weddings, funerals, divorces, birthday parties, work through the night. They made their money, they retired, and now they're writing a book on how to work-life balance. It's easy. When you've got a couple of $1 million in the bank, it's easy to have a work-life balance. But until you get there, it's hard slog work. Like, put in the hours, do your work, get it done. So anyway, that's the work-life balance. But to come back to the point you were making, I mean, it feels like a lot of people now need to almost restart building relationships. And Catherine was talking about the dating game as well, and it's touched on that as well. But now getting back into dating, getting back into having relationships, even if it's a braai on a Saturday afternoon with people you thought you knew or didn't know or went to varsity with or whatever. Like, what are some of the fundamental basics, or what are some of the things that people should be worried about or thinking about or looking at when they start going back into the world, trying to sort of connect with other humans?
Well, let's start with the most controversial one first of all, and this is not open for discussion because it's a very touchy subject, but it is something that is coming up for a lot of people, and that is, you know, vaxxing versus anti-vaxxing, and who you choose to hang around with or associate with, depending on where you stand on the spectrum. And obviously, from an employment perspective, a lot of employers are mandating that. So from a dating point of view, you know, choosing whether you want to date someone that is or isn't vaccinated at a very simple level, it can be a major deal breaker for some people, you know, so there's that issue to contend with. There's, you know, people have also had time to think about, what do I really want? What am I really looking for in a relationship and a partner? And how is that person adding value to my life? But also, what am I bringing to the table? And I'm not just talking financial here. I'm talking about what are the qualities and the traits that I'm bringing to the table that is going to add value to this person's life and to our relationship, and vice versa. People are being a lot more picky about what they want and what they're doing with their time and their energy and their you know, their attention and their resources. And then the kind of lifestyle that you want to live, as you mentioned, it's now been coined the great resignation. You know, a lot of people have realized they've got choices here. And from a career point of view, well, if my employer isn't going to give me the flexibility that I've now realized I want and can have in my life, I'm going to resign and I'm going to go and find another company that is going to give me that and how it's going to meet my needs. And mental health is a very big thing, and it's also very topical at the moment. But a lot of people are being more outspoken about their mental health challenges that they've experienced, and that it's no longer a shame, and removing the stigma associated with that. Sadly, on the negative side of that, and we have seen the stats spike globally, unfortunately, is gender-based violence and sexual harassment. With employees working from home, some employers have realized or are realizing that some employees are not safe working from home. And we've also seen, with the home being the workplace and online being the workspace, that sexual harassment has moved from in the office to online as well.
Sure. All right. I don't know what to say to that. I mean, that is just so loaded with so many landmines across the board. I mean, from starting with, Catherine, now you're going to have to be asking people to fill out forms before you meet with them. Are you vaccinated?
God.
What's your star sign? Are you financially stable? Otherwise, we're not even having a coffee. I mean, and it's, we laugh and we joke, but I mean, it's true. I mean, it's quite a consideration to have. I mean, it's a whole nother level of things that we have to think about. And then, like you said, like this issue with people now being locked up at home. I mean, I think there's just so many nasties that have come out of the woodworks as a result of this. And to some extent, it's good that we are becoming so aware of it, and that it's sort of almost highlighted, the issues, or sort of amplified them so we can do something about it. But at the same time, it's almost like something you think, geez, are we really still dealing with this kind of stuff in 2022? With all the knowledge we've got, all the systems we have. I mean, we're busy sending people to space, and we want to go to Mars, and here we are still dealing with, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, it really is just sort of, unacceptable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, as you say, after all these years and these decades of dealing with this stuff, and we've made very little progress on one hand. On the other hand, we have made progress and some recent changes to legislation where GBV is concerned. But, Catherine, coming back to your dating and how do I go back into the dating world now, it's, you've got to be very clear on what it is that you do want and what it is that you don't want. And it's often easier to start with what I don't want, to narrow it down and kind of get an idea of what I do want, and to have realistic expectations. As you said earlier, Alex, that no one person is ever going to meet your needs 100% of the time, all of the time. It's unrealistic to expect that. And if you do, you're setting the person up for failure before the relationship has even started. So it's understanding, what does a healthy relationship look like, and a happy relationship. And that doesn't mean that you're never going to fight and you're going to be in love forever, and you're going to be joined at the hip and do everything together. Like, that's unrealistic. A healthy relationship is where you retain your individuality as individuals, and allow each other to be your own person and to have your own space every now and again. But then you come together with intentionality to co-create the us, we, ours, which is where your relationship lives. And being very clear on those boundaries that protect your relationship and protect each other, and what behavior you will and won't tolerate, or what is or is not acceptable. And understanding that as you grow and evolve through your relationship, you also grow and evolve as individuals. So the person you were a year ago, or 10 years ago, you're no longer that person now. So you've got to keep reconnecting and integrating with each other, so that you continue to grow together, as opposed to what often happens is couples end up growing apart and become disconnected.
I want to know what's your opinion on when you were dating in the beginning, and it's kind of like a talking stage, you've been on a few dates. What do you feel about speaking on WhatsApp every single day, as opposed to taking breaks and not speaking every day?
Or not talking on WhatsApp at all, maybe just picking up the phone.
Or that.
Yeah, cool.
Because I've kind of like gotten to the point where I rely on WhatsApp and someone to reply to me all the time, which is not actually that normal, I've realized. And I think a lot of my friends and I get disappointed when someone doesn't reply for a day or whatever. So what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think it's, first of all, managing your own expectations. And we live in a world of instant gratification, and we want something and we want it now. So when we send someone a voice note or a WhatsApp, we're expecting them to reply straight away. And when they don't, then we go, oh, maybe they're not interested. Maybe they don't like, maybe that, and we overanalyze stuff and we listen to those voices in our heads instead of going, well, maybe the person's busy. Maybe they're sleeping. Maybe they're in the shower. Maybe whatever, So to try and not be overly sensitive and take it personally within reason, if the person hasn't responded after 2 days, like, well, okay, then fair enough. But also I would say as part of that communication, like, how do you prefer to communicate? Some people hate WhatsApps and voice notes. That pick up the phone and phone me. I want to engage with you. I want to speak to you.
Yes. So
Catherine, you should have been here after the Rinderpest. Here we were with our typewriters, having to type up letters and put them in envelopes and put a seal on it. And then some guy on horseback had to ride across the mountains and bring your dear loved one your message of heartfelt. And then they had to respond. Alex, it would take like 2 weeks later, you get a response.
Part of me thinks I would prefer that, because now it's like when someone's got the message because there's a double tick. Whereas that it could have got lost in the post.
The messenger could have been eaten by a lion somewhere, between Graafrenet and and Grabecha. I mean, it's true. I mean, it's so funny. Why I reference this is because I've just spent some time in the Eastern Cape, and I'm just absolutely loving the history that I've discovered in this area. And I thought, what a horrible time to have to be alive back then, when you didn't have flushing toilets, running water, no electricity. I mean, you had to cross over these mountains by ox wagon. And I mean, it was just, you didn't know if you were going to live till 40 because you might get shot at one of these frontier wars, or you might get eaten by something. I mean, we live in such a spectacular time in terms of technology, in terms of access to information. And yet it feels like a lot of the problems still seem to be the same, if not worse. Paul, I don't know what your thoughts on this, but...
Yeah, we definitely expect things, and we want it now. We don't want to wait. And that's the thing about dating, is it takes time to get to know somebody, to really know somebody, not just, we're putting our best foot forward because we want to impress and we want to win this person over and we want them to like us and want to be with us, because at the end of the day, nobody likes to be rejected, right? And we take it as rejection. If we just looked at it and be honest with each other and go, you know what, I'm not feeling it. Like, I'd rather, let's be honest and let's move on and allow you to meet someone else and bring that person into your space, and vice versa, than dragging it out and dragging each other down the garden path. And then you just end up getting hurt even more down the line.
Yeah, communication's key, 100%.
But sort of proper communication, not just sort of, I suppose, sending emojis or blue ticks or whatever. I mean, like you say, you don't know where you stand, you don't know what's going on. Like, what does this clover leaf and the smiley face mean? What am I doing? It must be a nightmare.
I like just to know what's going on. Like, I'd rather someone tell me that they don't think it's going to work out than just not say anything, or like just not reply for a few days kind of thing. It's all about just being honest. I think that's the most important thing. And in friendships and any type of relationship, saying, knowing where you stand.
I'm starting to feel like there's some sort of whole new concept going here. We could have like the love doctor on like a Monday night, and
oh my gosh,
people could like message in and be like, I'm struggling with this WhatsApp. What should I do? How should I respond?
Yes,
I don't know.
And anonymous like messages. I think it's a great idea.
Paula, I think we've got something going here.
All of my friends and I have these problems that we could probably speak about for centuries.
Yeah, we'll be busy for years. I mean, Paula and I will be sort of well and gone before we can answer all these questions.
Exactly.
Of 20 somethings. But Paula, I mean, I see time runneth incredibly quicketh. In closing, I mean, what are some of the things that you've got on your dashboard when it comes to relationships going into 2022? Advice, things to watch out for, trends, anything that we should bear in mind?
Well, we've definitely taken a more conscious approach to knowing ourselves and what we want, and that it's around quality relationships versus situationships. And we are definitely making more choices that are right for us and work for us and what we want. And at the same time, we've reassessed what success looks like for us. And based on that, we are making different choices in life. We've become a lot more conscious and aware of what's valuable versus what we deem important. So, for example, material stuff, the house we live in, the car we drive. We've realized quality of life and quality people in our life is of value. And that it's okay to put your hand up and say, I'm not okay, and to ask for help. Whether it's talking to a trusted friend or whether it's taking, one step further and talking to a professional and getting help. And that you don't have to rush into a relationship. You can take your time, and that's okay as well. And I think also around a lot of people are craving human connection and are tired of the virtual world. They're tired of the online world. They want to now start meeting in person again. So how do you take your own safety and well-being into account based on, where you stand, whether it's vax, anti-vax, but also just from a physical distancing perspective? And a lot of people are now agreeing to meet up outdoors as opposed to going to, romantic dinners at a restaurant. Well, let's go grab a coffee and a walk in the park, as an example, because it's outdoors and it's deemed a lot more safer and it's out in nature and, out in the beauty, because we've been cooped up inside for so long. So dates are changing. The way people spend time together are changing. And yeah, there are a lot more people online on online dating apps, but at the same time, people are taking longer to get into a relationship. They're taking their time to get to know a person and have had to be quite creative with online dating. So things like watching a movie together and then commenting or sharing your thoughts about the movie, or cooking dinner and then sharing and eating your meals together while online. So dating has definitely taken on a different trend and much more creativity on both sides.
Oh, wow. Oy vey. Paula Quinsee, thank you so much. A relationship expert. I appreciate you making the time to chat to Catherine and I about relationships, both romantic and non-romantic. And I think we could have another fat conversation about this. So I think we need to have you back again in the coming weeks and months to chat a little bit more. And maybe we'll even pick up on that conversation about getting some of your friends to share some of their ideas. And we could have a bit of a what would you call it? The love solution sort of evening where we try to find solutions for lonely hearts or broken hearts or yearning hearts, however we want to call it. So yeah, Paula Quinsee, thank you so much for joining us. And
thank you, Paula.
Very nice Gustav Klimt in the background there as well.
Thank you.
I also noticed it.
I'm going to release you from our studio. There we go. Catherine, that's it for our first episode for 2022. I thought that was really interesting.
I thought it was great. I think we could do this a lot more often with Paula, or someone to help. I think it's great. I think a lot of people have these problems, and it's so normal, and just having someone that's professional to give their advice is always great.
Yeah, man.
I think I tend to give my friends, emotional advice because I love them and I don't want them to get hurt. I think it's a lot better to get someone that's professional.
Or an outside perspective, somebody who's not necessarily going to, to give you too sanitized advice because they're scared, you're not going to go for coffee with them again, or they're not going to see you ever again. So yeah, but Catherine, awesome to catch up with you again. We're doing this again next week, and if you're watching, if you're listening, thank you so much for making the time to watch this live, to watch it delayed, to listen to it delayed. Always fantastic. Please do reach out on editor at Sandton Times. .co.za. You can connect with the Sandton Times on social media at Sandton Times. Visit the website www.sandtontimes.co.za and go watch that first vlog I put up. Man, it was a lot of work, eh? I mean, it's everything you've ever wanted. Cinematic shots, drone shots, and animals. I mean, the whole lot. I mean, what more do you want? And it doesn't cost you a cent. Go watch it and give it a thumbs up or a comment.
I'm going to watch it right now.
Catherine, do right now. And then get every prospective boyfriend to watch it as well and be like,
I will force them. And if they don't, then they're not right.
Otherwise, I'm not going to blue tick your WhatsApp.
Exactly.
So thank you to our guests, Paula Quinsee and also Catherine. Thank you. It's good to hang out with you again. And also our producer, Jean Robertson, in the background. You never get to see Jean or hear from Jean, but she is there. She's with us. I know. I see she was commenting as well.
Oh.
So.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Alex.
And
Happy Tuesday.
we're doing it again next week, Tuesday. Thank you for listening. and let's connect again next week. Ciao for now.
Sounds good. Bye.